individual classifiers, we can try to capture any decision boundary or any complex decision boundary. So the idea is not a single classifier might be sufficient if your data is, I would say, highly non-linearly separable. So in that case, ensemble learning helps you to, model that complex decision boundary, or at least tries to get closer to that complex decision boundary with the help of choosing multiple different classifiers. Okay. Now another context is data fusion. So sometimes what happens is you might get data from multiple different sources. So for example, let's say if you are trying to determine if a patient has cancer or not. Let's take the example of brain cancer. So maybe you're trying to look at CT images. You also have the MRI images. You also have, say, patient's history, which is written in some textual form. So I have like three different sources here: MRI, CT, and that text data, basically the past history. So all you could think of is like I would train one particular source. Let's say I would take the text data and feed it to a support vector machine. I can take, say, the CT data and perhaps train a neural network for it. And I can also take, say, the MRI data and again train maybe, say, one more neural net for it, and having, say, a different architecture altogether. So the idea is, in essence, we are trying to train multiple classifiers. So that's why the reason, we are trying to build an ensemble here. Okay. Now coming back to like what are the different components in ensemble learning. So the first is like how to decide the different classifiers. So basically you have to decide on what individual classifiers you would choose. Do you want the classifiers to be of the same type? Basically each individual classifier, whether you want, say, all of them to be decision trees or all of them to be neural nets, or you want like different classifiers for each individual classifier. Okay. And finally, how would you merge the different outputs of these different individual base models? Okay. Now, a key thing to note is that we had also discussed this yesterday, that you would want all of your classifiers to be weak learners. We already discussed this. Like it doesn't really make sense to give the entire data to two different classifiers of the same type, and then train these classifiers, maybe even with like different initialization points, because their outputs, or you can say their predictions, they will not deviate much. So let me just give you an example. So the context is we want to train our classifiers which are accurate, and we also want to ensure that there has to be diversity across these classifiers. Diversity means that these samples that you use to train these individual classifiers, they are different. So let us say that you have a training set, and this training set comprises of say 10,000 samples. I have example you can take. I have 5 different classifiers. Let me call them as C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5. So to each of these classifiers, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take 10,000 samples. So each classifier will still be trained on these 10,000 samples. However, what you're going to do is you're going to do sampling with replacement. Okay, so the idea is, for let's say I'm trying to build classifier 1. You pick up, you pick up one sample from your data set. Basically, you try to randomly sample one sample from these 10,000 samples, and then you add it to the training set of classifier 1. Then you pick up another sample from the training set. You add it to the training set of C1. So you would do this process 10,000 times. So you would do this process 10,000 times, and then you will end up with the training set of C1. So there might be certain repetitions in your training set. There might be certain redundancies. So that's the idea. So if you look at the training set of all of these individual classifiers, even though they have 10,000, all of them have 10,000 samples, they have some kind of, you can say, distinction in the sense that some of the samples are common and some of the samples are distinct. So those distinct samples that they have across them leads to the diversity across these classifiers. So you have to remember this part, that these samples are, these classifiers are actually built with sampling using or sampling with replacement. So this is the key point that I wanted to highlight. In essence, what we do is we try to ensure that at least, so given your training set, we try to ensure that each classifier has no more than 63.2% samples. So this is, I'm just giving you a general number. In most of the literature that you will study regarding ensemble learning, there you will see that no classifier should hold more than 63.2% of, you can say, so in this context, there should not be, so in each classifier, let's say if I'm talking about C1, so C1 should have no more than 6,322 distinct samples from this training set. All other samples in this training set, or you can say the remaining, 10,000 minus. So remaining these samples would be, would be picked from these 6,322 samples. So some of the samples are going to be redundant. Any doubt regarding this so far? If you have any doubts regarding this, let me know. You can always unmute your mic and discuss with me. Okay, now let me just show you an example of like how come if I use a weak classifier and that classifier is going to be a weak learner. So let me just give an example. So I'm going to use, in this particular example, I'm going to use 21 different classifiers. And I'm going to show that if I use, say, a certain classifier, let's say a very strong classifier, which has an accuracy of 95%. So I'm going to compare these 21 base classifiers, which are weak classifiers. Okay. And when I merge the predictions of these 21 weak classifiers, they will do much better than your strong classifier, which has a prediction of close to 95%. And so let me just make certain assumptions. So let's say that each of these weak classifiers has a accuracy of close to 70. Okay, so each of these weak classifiers has a accuracy of 70%. Okay, so if the accuracy is 70%, I can say the error rate is close to, exactly 30%. Basically, I'm taking a 1 minus of 0.7. Okay, now so I have assumed that this task is a binary task. So if you have studied binomial distribution, so if I want my classifier, so I have 21 different classifiers. So if my prediction goes wrong, can you tell me how many classifiers should agree in order to make my classification go wrong or correct? Anyone? Is the question clear to you?
Sir, no, sir. Can you repeat the question?
So I have 21 different classifiers. Basically, I have 21 different models. Okay. My task is a binary task. So I am interested in predicting whether it's a 0 or 1. And each individual classifier can tell me whether the sample is a 0 or 1. Okay. Now, in order to give you an answer, like the final answer, whether if it's 0 or 1, how many classifiers should agree to give the final output? So you are going to do majority voting, right? Because it's a classification task. So at least how many classifiers should agree to give you an answer whether the final output is 0 or 1?
At least 70%, right? I
Why
mean,
do
it
you
depends
say?
on how much we define it. I mean, like if it's more than 70%, you accept it. Like,
Okay,
I think it's
let me call this. Let me take the majority vote.
right,
So
right.
if there are 21 different individuals, how many of them should agree to give you a final answer?
Well, 0.7 times 21, which is around
Why do you say 0.7 times? I'm confused.
0.7
Like,
because I'm assuming that 70% or above is majority for me, is my majority, or
see,
it's conflict.
each classifier has its own accuracy, which I'm
Right,
telling
right.
you is 70%.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm asking you, so forget even the accuracy part. So let's say you are in a meeting and you want to take a certain decision. Okay.
Right,
And you will take a decision when a majority of the people agree. Okay.
right.
Now there are 21 different individuals. So how many of them should agree to, to take a decision? Considering the decision to
Okay.
be binary, you either go with it or you
It's
don't.
okay. So like not
11.
instead of in clear day, like you have to like 51 or like 51% or like half and plus one.
Yeah, you're right. You're on the right track. Somebody even said 11. So at least 11 people should agree to give you a decision, right? So that's the same thing here.
Mhm.
If you want to take a majority vote, so out of those 21 different classifiers, at least 11 should agree on whether it's a 0 or 1.
Right.
Okay. So if you know what binomial distribution is, so what we are interested in computing is that out of the 21 different individuals, our probability, I would say our probability that we get at least greater than equal to 11 votes. So basically, 11 different, at least 11 different classifiers should agree whether if it's a 0 or 1. Okay.
So, but I have a doubt.
Yes.
Isn't
Yes.
this like very hazy? Like, if 10 people say yes, other people say no. So we can't ignore the other 10, right? So why can't we just pick a random out of the two? Maybe
Okay.
one or
Okay. Do you okay? Whether one person saying a yes or no, whether one person saying a yes or no, uh, is you can say is better than 11 people saying a yes or no.
only one person versus 11, no. But when you take 10 versus 11,
Which is, see, that is 1. 11 by 10 is still 1.1. You still have more confidence, right?
yes, yes. But suppose that one extra had come from overfitting or something like that.
Why
Suppose.
don't you view that one person, that alone person giving you a 1 there? That
Okay.
person was overfitting. I'm just giving you an intuition of, okay, so I am telling you beforehand, like each of these individual classifiers, they are 70% accurate. They are not even
Right, right.
close to 95%. So
Fine.
what I'm going to show you is that finally you will end up in a situation where the final accuracy that you will get will be even more than 95%. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to prove here.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So you are right in the sense that for now I'm assuming a binomial distribution. It may necessarily not be this situation where the scenario is following this binomial distribution.
Hmm.
Okay, so assume for now that the distribution is binomial. So okay, so I think you would have studied like normal distribution,
Yes, sir.
which is also known as Gaussian distribution. Bernoulli distribution. Have you studied these distributions in detail?
We did some problems on them, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us assume binomial distribution for now. I'll discuss these distributions like whenever we are going to discuss the derivations of like the different classifiers that we are going to study next. Okay.
Hmm. Yes, sir.
Assume that we follow a binomial distribution. Let me say that so I am going to have a majority close to 11 votes. So 11 or higher, I'm going to take a decision. Okay. Now, if you remember the formula for binomial distribution, it is actually given as NCR, P to the power R, Q to the power N minus R, where P I am going to assume as the probability of error rate. Okay. See, I want to say that, okay, given a sample whose label was 0, now the majority agrees that the label is actually 1. So at least 11 people are saying that the majority, so the majority is saying that the label is actually 1. However, the true label is 0. So what I'm trying to compute here is what is the probability that my sample gets, the final label of my sample is incorrect. So for that to happen, at least 11 votes should be there. So all I am computing is, you can say, if I denote this quantity by, let's say, okay, let me just rub it and rewrite it. Okay, so what I'm interested in computing is probability that 11 votes are there plus probability that 12 votes are there up till probability that all 21 agree on that the prediction is actually a 1. So this is my prediction. However, the true value was 0, or true label was 0. So I am interested in computing what is the error rate in case of false predictions. So if I go by binomial distribution, what you will see is that if you compute, say, p greater than 11. So let me just compute one value for you, and this would be easier to understand that way. So this would come out to be 21 choose 11. So I'm only computing this p11 here. So 21 choose 11, 0.3 to the power 11 into 0.7 to the power 10. So this is equal to p11. If you compute p12, you will get 21 choose 12, 0.3 to the power 12, and 0.7 to the power 9. So similarly, you can add up all these quantities. So basically, this is going to tell me what is the error rate, what is the false error rate in case the majority predicts like a false prediction for a given sample. Okay. Now, if you compute this sum, you will get a value which is close to 0.026. So this is the, you can say, error rate when 11 of my classifiers, or at least 11 of my classifiers, were making a wrong prediction. So so in on an average, how many times the classifier would be right? So if this is the error rate when the majority goes with a false prediction. So if you subtract 1 from it, this is going to give you the accuracy of all those 21 classifiers on an average. And this is how much? This is close to 99 point, say, some 8 or 9.7 something. So we are doing like better than that one single strong classifier whose accuracy was close to 95%. And here in this case, we started with like each individual classifier having an accuracy of close to 70%. So if you build an ensemble where you ensure that enough diversity is there, so each of these different classifiers, even if they have lower accuracy as compared to a strong classifier, the prediction, the final prediction that you would get would be like even stronger than a strong classifier. So that's what the idea of ensemble learning is. Now you may ask that, okay, why? So what if the probability for let's say correct prediction for each individual classifier was, let's say, 0.4 only? So I'm saying that each individual classifier was having a accuracy of 40% only. What if in this case, I build an ensemble with 21 classifiers. So if you compute these values, this is now going to be closer to 90% for the error rate. You can try computing this and you will end up with this. Okay, the final error that you will get would be closer to 90. So that is why, so the idea is each of your weak classifiers should have an accuracy of more than 50%. And this is, if you remember, this is the definition for a weak learner or a weak model. So you have to ensure that each individual classifier should at least perform better than 50%. And if you can combine multiple different classifiers having at least this much performance, you will certainly end up building a strong classifier at the end, or even outperforming a single strong classifier. Okay. Now, the question comes is that how do you measure the diversity in your classifiers? Okay, so let's say I am building 5 different classifiers, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5. And I have one single set. So this is, let's say, my validation set. After I have trained these classifiers, let me say like all of these are decision trees. So one way to measure like how diverse these classifiers are is to take a validation set and see what are the predictions on this validation set. So based on what outputs that you get, for example, let's say there are 5 samples in this validation set. H1 gives me an output 0, H2 gives me an output 1, H3 gives me a 2, H4 gives me a 0, and H5 gives me a 3. Even though the majority says a 0, even though the majority says that this belongs to class 0. However, if you look at their individual predictions, they are still diverse. So this is how you can ensure that you are building diverse classifiers. So each individual classifier should, so for a given sample, on an average, you would say that the majority should tell you that. So in this case, if you remember, for you to make the final decision, at least 11 classifiers. So in this case, because there are 3 different classes, you cannot say at least 3 of them should agree, because there are 3 different outputs. So here in this case, you are simply saying that the output is a 0 because, I mean, most of the times 0 is being returned in the prediction. Okay, so diversity you can measure with the help of a validation set. Okay. Now, so there are these 5 popular ways in which you can construct an ensemble. So I'll start giving you certain strategies. You won't find this in the book. These are, you can say, I mean, I've read a few research papers and I'm trying to give you a few ideas about like how you can build different ensembles. So one is like enumerating the hypothesis, which means that, okay, so let me say that I have multiple different models. Let me call these models as say H1, H2 till some Hn. So I have n different models. Okay. Assume my task to be a classification task. Okay. So what I have done is for each of these individual classifiers, I have a train set. So basically H1 is trained on training set 1. Similarly, H2 is trained on training set 2, and so on and so forth. So each individual classifier or each individual model has its own training set. Now, whatever is the remaining portion, let me call this as the test set. So there is a test set 1 associated with H1. Similarly, there is a test set 2 associated with H2, and so on and so forth. Okay. So I can compute how these models are performing H1, H2 till Hn. So you can even do cross validation and see how well H1, H2, and Hn are performing. So let's say I can so I'm just giving you an example here. So let's say H1 gives you an accuracy of 60% for this classification task. H2 gives you an accuracy of 75%. Similarly, H3 gives you an accuracy of 80%. Okay. So now I ask you guys, how would you weight or how would you decide the final prediction? Okay, let me just make it more simpler for you. This would be easier. This would be like way easier to understand this way. So assume the task is a regression task. Okay. So let's say in this case, you have H1 performing or H1 having the average error to be close to 0.6. H2 having an error of say 1.3 and H3 having an average error of say 1.5. Now, how can you combine the predictions of these three different models? Did you get the question? If the question is not clear to you, please discuss. Please discuss with me. Let me know if the question is not clear to you.
Not clear, sir. Not clear. Not clear.
So there are three different models, H1, H2, and H3.
Right. Right.
And all of these three different models are doing regression. H1
Okay.
has an error of 0.6, H2 has an error of 1.3, and H3 makes an error of 1.5. Now I am interested in making the final prediction from H1, H2, and H3. How would you do it?
Can we calculate the? So we already have the error rate, right? So
You
can we
do have
adopt?
the error rate. So let's say on a particular example, H1 predicts say 1.3 as the output. H2 predicts 1.4 as the output, and H3 predicts 1.5 as the output. So this is the sample output for one example. And these are the respective error rates for each of these models. So I am asking you, like, how would you decide the final output?
Well, one naive way of thinking is weighted average. Like we use the errors and as the weights and get it like done.
Okay, so can you give me an example of how would you decide the weight for H1,
So
H2, and
suppose
H3?
yeah. So suppose we have 0.6 as error rate for 1.3, right? So that is the
Yes.
least error rate. So we'll pick the maximum. Suppose 1.5, right? So H3 has an error rate of 1.5. So what we'll do is we'll take a slightly larger value, like suppose 2.5, something like that. We'll subtract 0.6 with 2 point, so we'll do 2.5 minus 0.6 into 1.3 plus 2.5 minus 1.3 into 1.4 plus 2.5 minus 1.5 into 1.5. So that way we get we bias ourselves towards H1
Okay,
and
okay. Let me just give you a simpler way of doing this. I mean, you are just taking a higher weight or a higher value and subtracting it from each of these individual entities. Why can't you just simply subtract, say, the individual values from the, let's say I'm computing it for H1 only. So I'm subtracting it from this, and then I'm normalizing it this way. So this would be this would be like a normalized version of the weights of H1, H2, H3. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
So finally, what you can do is whatever this number is, you can multiply it with 1.3. And whatever the number for H2 would be, you can multiply it with 1.4. And whatever the number for H3 will be, you can multiply it with 1.5. And whatever is the final resultant, that will be your prediction. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And this is called as soft voting. If you want, you can note it down. So this is one way in which you can combine the outputs of different models which are trying to do regression. Okay. classification is actually or rather I'll tell you like how to do it for classification. When we talk about, there is a particular topic which is called as border count. I will discuss like how would you merge different classifiers when we discuss this border count. Okay, now let us come to the second point, which is manipulating the training examples. You have already studied this before, you know, like how to do bagging. So for each individual classifiers, you take, you build a training set with the replacement. So you try to ensure that in one particular training set, no more than 63.2% of the distinct samples are there from the from your given data set. Okay. We are also going to discuss more on this. We are also going to discuss boosting and related models. So I'll come back to this example soon. Then another thing that we have is manipulating the input features. Now, researchers have really tried so in order to make a classifier better, researchers have tried to inject some kind of noise in your input features and see like if your classifier is performing better or not. So what you can imagine is that, so let's say if there is a sample, let me have a 3-dimensional sample. So let's say I have a 3-dimensional sample. And this is you can say a classification task where the output is 0. Assume it to be a binary classification task. The given sample had values like 1.3, 2.1, 3.2. So what people have proposed is that instead of giving the values as 1.3, what you can do is you can add some epsilon value to each of these features, or maybe even subtract some epsilon value to each of these individual features, and then see like how it really impacts the classifier accuracy. And what they have observed is that, so assume that I build one classifier where I inject say plus 0.5 in x1, maybe say minus 0.3 in x2, and say minus 0.1 in x3, and I build one classifier. Similarly, I induce say 0.2 in say x1, and say minus 0.15 in x2, and say plus 0.3 in x3, and then build another classifier. So each classifier is built by injecting some randomness, some small amount of noise in your input features. And now these ensembles, when they make a final prediction, so experimentally it has been proven that even if you inject some noise while building the ensembles, so the final output is much better than having an ensemble setting where no noise was inserted. So if you can insert some noise while building the ensemble, this helps in most of the situations. So that is like how you can manipulate the input features. Okay. Now talking about this fourth point, which is manipulating the output targets. Okay. So I just want to know that have you studied error correcting output codes? Has it been discussed, error correcting output codes?
No, sir.
Okay. So let me just discuss it here itself. So the methodology is called as error correcting output codes. Or more commonly known as ECOC. Okay. Okay. So one question to you guys. You would have studied logistic regression. Have you studied logistic regression?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can you tell me, so if there are 3 different classes in my training data set, how many logistic regressors you would train?
Three classes. I think we studied for binary classification of logistic regression. But if
So
I
yes, so no, that is fine. So logistic regression is a binary classifier.
right, right,
You're right. Now what I'm asking is, assume that your data set has 3 different classes.
right, right.
So how would you train a final model where the underlying models that you are using are logistic regressors? So how would you do it for a scenario where there are 3 classes?
Well, we'll use two separate logistic regressors and modify them accordingly so that one of them will be at high and two will be at the middle and one will be at the bottom. Something like that, maybe.
Have you discussed this? I mean, I'm just going to write certain topic names. Have you
Right,
covered
right.
one versus one, one versus all, one versus rest? Have you covered these terminologies?
Uh, I don't think so, sir. Maybe not.
Okay, so that's fine. So let me just discuss these one by one. So basically one versus rest and one versus all, it means the same thing. Okay, so assume that you have 3 datasets. Let me just take a blank page. Okay, so assume that you have 3 different classes. Let me call these as say 1, 2, and 3. So I have output labels as 1, 2, and 3. So 1 versus 1 strategy tells me that you train a logistic regression model for class 1 versus class 2. So there will be one model for class 1 versus class 2. There will be another model for class 2 versus class 3. And there will be one model for class 1 versus class 3. So there will be 3 such models. So let's say that this class 1 versus class 2 model gives me an accuracy of say 0.6% in favor of class 1. So there is one sample. So I give you a sample X and I want to know whether if it belongs to class 1, class 2 or class 3. So what you will do is you will pass this sample X to each of these classifiers. So this is my H1, this is H2, and this is H3. So if I pass this sample X to H1, it says that it belongs to class 1 with a 60% confidence. The probability is 0.6 in favor of class 1. Similarly, if I pass it to class 2 versus class 3, it tells me that it belongs to say class 3 with a probability of 0.7%. And similarly, if I pass it to class 1 versus class 3, it tells me that it has a probability of class 3, but the probability is say 0.8%. So the final prediction would be, can you tell me what would be the final prediction now that you know that H1 predicts class 1, H2 predicts class 3, and H3 predicts class 3? Anyone? Are you guys following or not?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh yeah, so I mean we're given the accuracies, we can calculate the probabilities from which we can
See,
get.
I am telling you that H1 predicts that X is actually having the label as 1 with 60%
Okay.
probability. H2 tells me that the probability is 0.7% in favor of class 3.
Okay, okay.
H3 tells me that the probability for class 3 is 80%.
Right, right, right.
So what should be the final output?
3.
So in that case, this would be class 3.
Yeah,
What if
yeah.
I change these? Okay, so assume that let's say H2 predicts class 2 with 0.9% probability. What would be the class label then?
Oh, again the same thing we did before. Okay, wait, we can't do that anymore. Since it's a discrete class.
Can you come again, please?
So it should be class 2 because we are comparing class 2 and class 3, and class 2 wins over class 3 by 90%. So yeah, because highest was class 3.
So yeah, you're right. This should be class 2. You, I mean, you were on the right track. The intuition behind this is whichever class gets the highest confidence among all these classifiers. Even if there was a scenario, so even if there was a scenario where, say, let me just change it slightly. So let me just write it again. Okay, so let's say your H1 predicts, let's say this is class 1 with a probability of say 0.4%, let's say 0.6%. H2 predicts say class 2 with a probability of say 0.8%, and H3 predicts with a class 1 with a probability of say 0.7%. See, in this case, 2 classifiers are predicting that this is class 1. Even then, you should predict the final output as class 2. Given that the highest confidence is 80% in favor of class 2 by H2. So the idea is you try to take the majority amongst the outputs of the 3 different classifiers that you have. I hope this is clear to everyone. Is there anyone who still doesn't understand like how majority is considered while deciding the final prediction? Okay, I hope this is clear to everyone. Now, coming back to like how would you train a logistic regression for H1, H2, and H3? So how would you construct the training set for it? So assume that your data set looks like this something. Okay, so this is the output. Here in certain places you would see 1, in certain places you would see 2, and in certain places you would 3. You would see, so the outputs, depending on if it's a 1, 2, or 3, you would correspondingly see the value as 1, 2, and 3 in the output column. If you are going to train a logistic regressor, let's say I'm training a logistic regressor H1, which is for class 1 versus class 2. So the training set for H1 would be, so what I'm going to do is that I'm only going to create a data set where the samples would be from class 1 and class 2 only. So you would pick all those samples from class 1 and class 2. And from this data set, you can construct a train set as well as a test set. I hope this is clear. So if you want to train a logistic regression model for class 1 versus class 2, so from your original data set, you pick up all the samples that belong to class 1 and class 2, and then sample it accordingly to build your train set and test set. Okay, so this is how you construct individual models for 2 different classes. Okay, so this strategy, I hope it is clear. Now coming to 1 versus all. It is also commonly called as 1 versus rest. This is another name for it. Okay, so in this case, what you are going to do, so here, let's say I'm making 3 different models again, H1, H2, and H3. I have the same scenario where I have 3 different classes, 1, 2, and 3. So H1, let's say, is going to build a model for class 1 versus all of the other classes. So all here means that whichever are remaining, or you can assume it to be rest. So class 1 versus class 2 and class 3. H2 is going to train a model for class 2 versus all, basically class 1 and class 3. And H3 is going to build a model for class 3 versus all, which are 1 and 2. So can you tell me how would you construct a data set in this scenario, in 1 versus rest scenario?
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Yes.
When you're constructing H1, you have 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, and then
No. I am constructing one single classifier where you are trying to distinguish between 1 versus all the other classes.
Acha, so it's like 1 or not 1. That's it.
1 or not 1. You are right.
Okay, okay.
If you want to view it that way, they should be 1 or not 1.
Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay. So how would you build a model H1 if I give you a data set where you have samples from 1, 2, and 3? How would you build such a model?
Well, again, the nice sense tells me that we just give the entire data set to this thing. But then again, it will be the same model for H1, H2, or H3 because we're giving the
No,
same.
no, no. So what you are going to do is that, so assume that this is your training set,
Right.
where the outputs are, for some outputs are 1, for some the outputs are 2, and for some the outputs are 3. Okay. So if you are going to train the model H1, where you are trying to distinguish class 1 versus basically all the other classes 2 and 3. So what you are going to do is that you are going to relabel this data set. By relabeling, I mean that class 1 samples should be labeled as 1. So all those class 1 samples should be labeled as 1. And for all the other classes, for class 2 and class 3, you are going to label it as 0. So these samples would now be labeled as 0. In this way, you can do a binary classification where you're trying to distinguish whether a sample belongs to class 1 or not. Is that part clear?
Yes, sir.
Similarly, you can train a classifier for H2 and H3. So it is still easier. I mean, you can use the same logic for deciding which is the final class. So you can say that, OK, H1 tells you that this is, let's say, not class 1 with a 60% probability. H2 says that this is class 2 with say 70% probability, and H3 says that this is say class 1 with 40% probable, or maybe if I say 40%, which means this is not class 1. Sorry. OK, this is I would say this is not class 3 with 40% probability. So this means that this is actually class 3 with 60% probability. So which one, which sample would you finally pick? What would be the final output? So H1 is saying this is not class 1 with 60% probability. So what you can do is H1 tells me that this is class 1 with 40% probability. H2 tells me that this is class 2 with 70% probability, and H3 is telling me that this is class 3 with 60% probability. So again, take the majority. So if the prediction is favor of basically not, what you can do is subtract from 1. And then you will say that this much is the favor in the context of that particular class. Any doubts regarding this? If there are, let me know. Otherwise, I'll move on to the next topic. I hope this is clear. Like, how would you do 1 versus 1 and 1 versus all? So basically, the idea is you are trying to extend binary classification task to multi-class classification, basically when there are more than 2 classes. So if you use any binary classifier to construct the underlying models, so you can use 1 versus 1 strategy or 1 versus all strategy to construct, multiple binary models to give you a final prediction. Okay, now one question to you guys. Assume that there are 5 different classes. So the number of classes that I have is 5. So how many models you are going to construct in 1 versus all first? In your training data set, you are given 5 different classes. So how many models are you going to construct when